Hello, I'm Jaden Cadero, and this is my Art 112 final project on the Vitruvian legacy, temples inspired by the quintessential Roman architect. In this video, I will discuss who Vitruvius was, what his accomplishments were, and how the concepts he developed influenced Roman temples that followed him, specifically the Pantheon in Rome and the Maison Carrier in Nimes, France. In order to understand his legacy, we need to understand who Vitruvius was and what his accomplishments were. Marcus Vitruvius Pollio lived for approximately 70 years during the 1st century BCE. He served as a military engineer under Julius Caesar and became an architect after completing his service. A scholar of Greek architecture and science, he developed numerous methods of engineering and construction and pioneered many crucial features of Roman architecture. Though an accomplished engineer and architect, he's only known to have designed one building himself, a basilica at Fanum Fortunae, which was at some point destroyed and no longer remains. As such, on the left is a three-dimensional approximation of the basilica based on detailed descriptions and illustrations he left in his book. That book would be his most important work, and what Vitruvius is most remembered for. Titled De Architectura, or About Architecture, it is commonly known as the 10 Books on Architecture. This manuscript put into text the most important fundamental concepts of Roman architecture, and ultimately defined what architecture itself was to Romans. Discussed topics include an architect's ideal education, construction materials, wall and column design, acoustics, aqueducts, astronomy, siege weaponry, and many others, truly encompassing every facet of the architecture and engineering world of ancient Rome. Books 3 and 4 apply most to the topic of temples, as they lay out floor plans and array columns in various fashions to create an ideal symmetrical and proportional experience for their occupants. The Pantheon is one of, if not the, most well-preserved and recognizable structure from ancient Rome. It consists of the following: a portico or porch, above which is a triangular stone pediment supported by 3 rows of 8 columns. It leads to a front entrance, a brick-made rectangular cella that opens into the Great Rotunda. Being perhaps the first building from classical architecture whose interior is deliberately made to outshine its exterior, the massive brick rotunda is capped with a concrete dome, a perfect hemisphere, exactly as tall as the rotunda is wide. The Egyptian granite columns within the 34 by 20 meter portico measure almost 12 meters tall and are topped with Corinthian capitals, evident by the acanthus leaf detailing stretching upwards. These columns are laid out in a modified Tuscan style, in perfect symmetry and proportionality to the rest of the temple. On the right is the rotunda, which contains an 8.8 meter wide hole known as an oculus that allows natural light to be cast into the vaulted room, shining a clear beam of light about the walls and floor. With this, the rotunda acts as a symbolic sundial, allowing viewers to roughly estimate the date and time from within. As in Vitruvius's explorations into astronomy and the experience lighting gives to occupants, the prominent use of an oculus lends to the reinforcement of the emperor's divinity. During the 1st and 2nd century CE, when this building was being built, the Roman Empire was busy incorporating its emperors into their religious system. The Pantheon, being a temple with no dedication to a particular god or goddess, was therefore used to glorify several now divine emperors that had ruled during its existence, clearly associating the power of the sun with the Roman leaders. Pictured here is the Maison Carrier in Nimes, France. Translating to the square house, this temple dates back to the 1st century CE and was constructed right out of Vitruvius's playbook, closely following his directions for a Tuscan temple. It sports a hexastyle or 6-column wide portico and pseudo-peripteral walls, meaning that columns are integrated partially into the walls, giving the appearance of true columns that surround all sides of the building. Its cella or inner chamber is simple and rectangular, and the entire structure stands on a 2.85 meter tall podium. On the left is a digital approximation of a cutaway showing what the interior may have looked like in ancient times, due to the fact that the current interior is barren and devoid of original furnishing. Uniquely, many of this temple's measurements are not proportional in traditional Roman feet, but rather in pesdrusians, a measurement used solely by Roman military officers in Gaul during this era. As was Vitruvius, it would appear that the designer of the Maison Carrier was current or formerly a soldier in the Roman army, likely an engineer. To the right is an image of the corner of the pediment. From the top to the bottom would be the cornice, the frieze, which contains leaf decorations upon its flat face, and the architrave, which is connected to the capital of the Corinthian columns. Between each architectural feature is a line of what is known as egg and dart decoration, which consist of half-oval shapes that repeat in a pattern. Finally, to illustrate Vitruvian architectural concepts, I have created a Tuscan temple of my own using SketchUp, a 3D modeling software. Following the guidelines laid out by Vitruvius in Book 3 of De Architectura, one can easily design a proportional and symmetrical reimagining of ancient history. This creation contains all of the most important basic features of a Tuscan temple: a 6 parts to 5 parts length to width ratio, 8 columns spaced in 2 squares with wider distance in the middle equal to that of the middle chamber of the cella, all underneath a pediment with sides 3 parts wide. As such, Roman temples are but one of many subjects Vitruvius delineates in his work, and the architects that followed him took great care in abiding by and improving upon the guidelines and the discipline that he created. Throughout the Roman Empire and far past its collapse, key Vitruvian elements can be found in almost anything known as or inspired by Roman architecture. After all, Vitruvius can genuinely say that he wrote the book on it. Thank you for watching.